Here to talk about the dangerous part, we'll discuss the challenges in digital currency and risk management. Please put your hands together for Rasmus Nielsen, Specialist, Leader, Risk and Financial Advisory, Deloitte.
We would be able to think more about risks at a systemic level. So some of the key drivers to look at the systemic level, that's like the size of the markets, how big is, how much exposure is there to digital assets, how complex are these instruments, how interconnected are they, is it just like isolated pockets of investors that have all the exposure, or is it all interconnected, how substitutable are these, the market and the products, and what are the cross-jurisdictional activities across countries that would cause the potential legal friction there. From a perspective of achieving economic, financial security and stability, which we all want, we all talked about all the potential, all the great things technology can do for society, but we also have a history of everything collapsing, going bust. So the objective for us should be to be able to be on the forefront of the development as we see how the economy and the financial system potentially can be impacted the continued growth trajectory of digital assets. All crises are different. Economic crises, we have experienced two quite deep recession in recent time. So the 08-09 recession, also the COVID-19 recession. Those dynamics were very different types of crises. In essence, we want to create a system to really understand and articulate the macroeconomic systemic impact of those digital assets. In order to do that, as a startup, we need to make sure we have the micro-level understanding of the nature of the digital assets.
I think one of the key points is about AI in governments. What can be the next steps for the Armenian government in terms of introducing AI in government? So I know that initiatives have been made in the Armenian government, and next step could be like making sure you have like a complete inventory of AI use cases. Well, how do we want to actually implement AI in government in Armenia? Building trust is key to AI. AI has capability, it also has risks, and it is critical to maintain public awareness and trust building in that they're aware of the risk and they are able to manage and prepare for anticipate those risks. Also, it's critical to think about regulation. Regulation is still a growing topic. We just recently got regulation out in the EU, but it's still not at a mature state in anywhere in the world. And the Armenian government may want to think about how we can set up regulation, potentially harmonize with other legal jurisdictions, whether it's Europe or US or something else. So some of the key takeaways there, I would say, there are great use cases of AI, very many successful use cases. We also hear the opposite of failed attempts to leverage AI. So that doesn't really reach the benefit they were expected to do so. Plus, it may have adverse consequences, unintended adverse consequences. So AI practitioners need to think about what are the requirements for building trust in the government. That's something like maintaining data privacy, making sure that they're not being used in unintended consequences in terms of generating or perpetuating bias in its use. Making sure it's explainable, understanding how it's actually being used in government. Make sure it's well governed, it's compliant with legal regulation. But also, I mean, as a small country, we want to think about making sure that regulation and best practices is compliant with industry standards. So you don't want a situation of fragmented legal requirement across different countries, in particular the small countries. In all the finance, it's about using new algorithmic approaches to manage finances, so credit risk and predictions, stress testing, achieving regulatory compliance. So everything is data-based within AI, so finance is an obvious use case for applying advanced machine learning algorithm. And that's the trend we see a lot, some of the more advanced approaches being used in traditional credit risk models. The fact that we have much more data now, the fact that we have much more computing power, more advanced, sophisticated algorithms like neural networks, new use cases in finance keep coming up. Street is very fast moving, especially around the fintechs that I work a lot with. The risk is, in a way, not necessarily, in finance, not necessarily that much different than it always has been. It's about making sure that they basically do what they're supposed to do. They have so much power, they can achieve modeling data-wise outcomes that we're not able to do in the past. But it also makes them harder to manage, to control, and you can have unintended consequences, and worst case that can have devastating consequences for how financial institutions run their business, in terms of how they manage their credit risk, their growth strategies, etc. That's a key part of the whole process from all the way from the beginning to end. So you need to balance innovation with the risk management, the risk assessments. It's not some afterthought you implement after the fact. It's a core part of the process that you consider all the risk, whether it's data, technology, human behavior. All these considerations need to be taken into account every step in the development process. There is a huge appetite for innovation. You could call it the initial fascination of everything you can potentially accomplish that you couldn't do otherwise due to constraints with data or computing power, for example. That being said, especially the financial services industry is heavily regulated, which means that every kind of innovation is subject to a certain amount of regulatory scrutiny to make sure that we don't violate some of the minimum requirements that we have to be implemented for practical use in financial institutions. But typically see that financial institutions, the developers are very interested in innovating, coming up with new, pushing their agenda in terms of using the most state-of-the-art neural network algorithms, for example, whereas you see more like the internal audit function pushing back and say like, we may not be fully compliant in terms of just basic explainability, in terms of just understanding what's actually happening in these black box algorithms.